Black Caesar, an 18th century pirate from Africa who was described as intelligent, strong, and of immense size. He operated around the Florida Keys in the early 1700s, and even went on to serve the legendary Blackbeard, notably being one of the only men to survive when Blackbeard and his crew were killed by Lieutenant Robert Maynard in 1718. It's been written that Black Caesar was an African tribal war chief, who was described as having the strength of 10 men and the size to go with it. His imposing appearance saw him escape a number of slave traders at the time, but he was eventually captured in a cunning ruse. An unnamed slave trader was said to have lured Caesar and his men onto his boat after showing him a golden watch. Fascinated by the watch, Caesar couldn't help but wonder what other treasures that the slave trader had on board his ship. The slave trader invited him and his crew to have a look, where they spoiled Caesar and his men to rich foods, drinks, and women. During this moment, the slave trader quietly raised the anchor and slowly sailed away. By the time Caesar realized what was going on, he and his crew were subdued by pistols and swords, preventing them from escaping. Caesar refused to eat or drink, and was said to refuse captivity for a number of weeks. However, it's noted that Caesar began to form a friendship with one of the sailors, whom he would only accept food and water from. As they neared the coast of Florida, a hurricane approached and threatened to destroy the ship. Knowing of the danger, the sailor who had become friends with Caesar snuck down to where he was imprisoned and freed him. Together, they overtook the crew using pistols and perhaps Caesar's tremendous strength. They were able to steal a lifeboat and made their way to the shore to wait out the storm. Caesar and his new BFF would begin using the lifeboat to lure passing ships, where they would pretend to be shipwrecked. Once lured, they would board the ship and then hold the crew up with their pistols, demanding supplies. They would continue this ruse for a number of years, and would bury a substantial amount of treasure on the Elliott Keys. This treasure has never been recovered, and is said to still likely be there somewhere. However, he and his sailor would have a falling out over, yep, you guessed it, a woman. It's said that the sailor had captured her from one of the ships, but upon seeing her, Caesar wanted her all for himself. They would fight over her, and unfortunately, the concept of bros before hoes would not come about for another 200 years. Therefore, Caesar killed his best friend and took the woman for himself. Caesar began recruiting pirates and was soon able to attack ships on the open water. It's been noted that Caesar was a cunning pirate, for he would escape many of his pursuers by fleeing into the inlets between Elliott and Old Rhodes Key. Caesar was able to ingeniously sink his own boat temporarily, using ropes to hoist and lower the vessel in and out of the water. Caesar and his crew would wait until the enemies had passed by, before resurfacing the boat and heading out again. 26 bars of silver were said to be buried here on the Keys somewhere, but once again, it has never been found. Caesar's base of operations would become known as Caesar's Rock, one of the 3 islands located north of Key Largo. It's here that Caesar was said to establish a harem, having at least 100 women who he had kidnapped from the passing ships. He also built a prison here, where he would keep prisoners that he intended to ransom back to those who would pay. Upon leaving the island, it's said that Caesar left no provisions nor food for those he had captured, and so many of them starved to death. There's an account that some children on the island were said to forage on berries and shellfish, having escaped their captivity, and would go on to form their own language and society. This mysterious group of children gave rise to a notion that the island was haunted. Black Caesar would cross paths with Blackbeard, and would soon find himself serving as a lieutenant aboard Blackbeard's flagship, the Queen Anne's Revenge. Blackbeard was said to be most impressed with Caesar's presence, and would even ask him to personally detonate the Queen Anne's Revenge by lighting up the powder kegs should they ever be captured. However, his career with Blackbeard would not last long, for Lieutenant Robert Maynard would kill Blackbeard in an epic battle on board. Most of the crew were also dispatched or imprisoned during the battle, but Black Caesar fought his way down to the powder kegs, where he intended to fulfill Blackbeard's request and destroy the Queen Anne's Revenge. But Caesar was apprehended by a captive who was able to tackle him as he prepared to light a trail of gunpowder that would see to the ship's destruction. Lieutenant Robert Maynard's men were soon able to restrain him, and he would be taken prisoner by the Virginian authorities who had commissioned Maynard. Black Caesar would be quickly convicted of piracy and hung in Williamsburg, Virginia. Black Caesar certainly was a beast amongst men, don't you think? I know I wouldn't be foolish enough to fight him over a woman, or anything else for that matter. Would you? Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm actually not going to be covering a pirate on the next video, but instead a different sort of legend from history, one who sang in a pit of snakes as he died. Until the next time, folks.